But what if I want to move? What if a life event happens and I just no longer see myself resonating with the values of this farm? Or what if I get a job offer to go out to move to Vancouver and now I want to leave the community? And I want to be able to kind of keep the integrity of the community and the memberships, but I also want to be able to sell my membership. Or I want to be able to move out of my membership and realize the value of my investments and the value of my time, energy, and money put into the farm. And so that segments directly into the first key piece that I want to talk about here, which is the pain points of our farm. Now, I can talk about the pain points of a physical reality of our farm, right? We only this year got power that's connected to the grid. I mean, we have solar panels, we still have to install them. We need finances to do a bunch of different things. We have and experience droughts from time to time. We don't have a big giant irrigation system at the moment. So we have to hand water a lot of things. We're doing a lot of the work by hand. We're not really using machinery or tilling or tractors a ton. We do to some degree, but we don't have a ton of equipment necessarily. And a lot of that is solving itself. Now, a lot of that is solving itself through the fact that people are showing up Fridays and Saturdays and other days of the week, but Fridays and Saturdays are kind of our more public days, as volunteers to participate in that. And then there are some people who really do see themselves as kind of permanent members. They've taken responsibility. So that's a key word that I want to talk about, responsibility. Here's my pain point. A lot of people come to the farm and they say, oh, wow, this is really great. You guys want to build a community. You have 88 acres outside of Montreal. You want to transform it in this way, but you're the owner of the farm. And so what they do is that they attribute ownership to decision-making. They attribute the way that the farm functions in the same way that they would attribute the way the farm functions or the normal business functions, which is that the owners make all the decisions and basically have all the power and all the control. Now, that to some degree is true. What I mean by that is there's always some power that's left with the people who can kind of pull the plug at any point. And I can acknowledge that you might believe, and without knowing me, that that's the case. But if you really know me, and if you've really spent enough time at the farm, what you actually understand is that my goal is to remove the bottleneck of me and the need for me to make decisions and validate other people's decisions, but instead allow that to distribute so that people can have ownership, true ownership of the success of the farm and true ability and power to exert that power on the farm itself without needing my validation, without necessarily needing my decision, but also communicating with me and or others their needs so that things don't overlap, right? So we need management of the farm, but we also want people to have ownership or have a sense of responsibility that comes with ownership. See, once you own something, you tend to take care of it, right? If you have a house and it has a leak, you fix the leak, because if you don't fix the leak, it creates a bigger problem. Well, at the farm, because people don't own it, although they do identify as being, let's say, a member or somebody who's a regular at the farm, they don't treat it the way they would if it was theirs. And they don't, and in communal settings, a lot of shared responsibility falls through the cracks. Like, who's going to wash the dishes? Well, it's not my job to wash the dishes. It's not your job to wash the dishes. But at the end of the day, we're all here, you know, kind of co-creating, co-farming together. So somebody has to wash the dishes. And so we're building the systems that make that happen. And we're kind of finding ways to appoint people to have their version of their projects be under their responsibility, right? So if, let's say I'm a beekeeper and I take care of the bees and I become a producer member, meaning I'm becoming an entrepreneur running a small business within the larger business that is the co-op and the farm, then that's very clear. But there are other things that are day-to-day occurrences like cleaning the toilets or washing the dishes or buying common infrastructure or clearing up the paths, for example, doing maintenance on the farm, cutting the grass, things like that, that fall in no one person's category. Now, in an ideal world, we would have enough revenue to pay workers to take on those responsibilities, and that's part of what we're planning on doing with memberships, the dollars that come in through membership, right? A lot of that money is going to go basically hiring certain people to take on certain roles. one person to really manage everything related to the welcome desk and the bistro, what we call our bistro, which is where we can serve water, where all the glasses are found, where people can check in or purchase something, where they can buy the eggs that we sell. We want to have that responsibility be handed to someone who gets paid to work at least on a minimum on Fridays and Saturdays to kind of deal with the rush of what I call tourists and or members coming to the farm. But beyond that, there's so many other layers of responsibility and opportunity that we get to have. And as the biggest investor in the farm, from a money perspective, most of the farm is growing at the pace of our talent, the people who are there and find ownership and like just start making things, planting things, taking care of the flowers or pulling out the weeds or replanting the garlic or doing whatever it is that needs to be done. But it also runs at the pace of how much money do we have to invest in more and more common infrastructure or into getting the farm to its closer and closer state of having a communal center at the middle, kind of educational space, a place where people can gather, a place where we can host events, like I said, all those things I said, and the structure that it needs to kind of enable clear agreements between us and those who have projects that want to be executed in that way. Now, we're going through that process nicely. I think we're really headed in the right direction. I was able to invest a good amount of money to build a lot of infrastructure this year. I mean, the farm is at a blistering pace that is absolutely insane. And none of this, I really want to stress this, none of this is possible without the support of people who are showing up on a regular basis and those who are cheering us on Instagram or on Facebook or wherever else it is too, okay? So deeply appreciative of that. But every once in a while, for a common project to happen, we also need to buy the common resources. So I'll give you an example. We have to buy wood to build a structure over the kitchen so that we can have shade in the kitchen, so that we can cook in the kitchen comfortably. Well, who buys that wood, right? No one person in the normal system has the incentive of buying that wood other than maybe the chef. But then if the chef is going to buy the wood and they don't really own the wood or they don't really own the kitchen, then they're not really going to do that. And they're not going to see it as their responsibility to do that, even though they might have the resources to do it and they might really want it to happen. So what they're going to do is they're going to defer through the traditional mindset that, oh, if you're the owner, you have to pay for it. And that's great, but that grows slowly. And that basically bottlenecks decision-making processes in some cases, but more importantly, I don't want to say more importantly, equally importantly, investments in the farm being at the pace of cash flow that I get to be able to put into it. Now, the farm is not the only thing I do. I have expenses, running the studio. I have expenses hiring Kyler is behind the camera here. There's so many different layers of things that I have to invest in on a regular basis just to run my life, pay insurance on my car or whatever it is. So, and there's only so much cash flow that I can generate in any given year. Now, sure, living abundantly, I can make a ton of money and I can keep the pace of the farm growing at faster than normal. I'm doing a decent job at that, right? If I say so myself, that's a little pat on my own back over there. I'm doing a decent job at kind of keeping the pace of the farm growing at what I think to be a very good, sustainable pace. But if it were up to me, I would love to bring on investors. I would love to have other people take ownership and responsibility of projects and do that in a way that feels really clear. So we've started to do that, right? I invested in garlic, but then one of our neighbors invested in garlic, or one of my friends or one of our members invested in garlic, for example. And so now as the garlic sells, they put an initial investment, we put an initial investment, we're multiplying that garlic, and based on their initial investment, they're getting that percentage of the garlic sales. Okay. That's fairly clear. It could get messy and complicated, but that's very small. It's very minute. It's not the biggest expense isn't the fact that we need more money for garlic, right? It's not really the thing that's slowing us down. It's more the common infrastructure, like I said, the wood, or who builds the washing station, or who upgrades the internet, and who pays the insurance. Those types of expenses are harder to divide, and they're harder to allocate to any one person or any one project, even though there might be, like I said, we're building an umbrella of projects and we're running an umbrella organization for those projects to begin with. So my pain point is that a lot of people ask me for permission to do everything. And that's normal. It's natural. It's part of how we operate in society. If you come to my house, you're going to ask me whether or not you need to keep your shoes on when you walk in or whatever it is, right? You're going to have, it's a form of respect that you're showing to the people who have come before you or to the people who are running whatever space you're walking into, that you're going to follow the rules in the same way you follow the rules if you go to a bar or a club, or whether you go to a museum. Like, there are rules, and those rules are established by the management of those places. Great. But now what, right? How can we move past that? How can I get out of the way and enable the creative genius and superpowers of other people? And the truth is that crypto, and particularly blockchain, the technology of blockchain, is a way of creating decentralized power and decentralized trust. See, here's the thing. When you're investing in a company that's run traditionally, you have to trust the management, you have to trust the team, you have to trust the vision, you have to believe in the business plan, you have to believe in the direction and the product or services they're providing, whatever it is. And you have to trust that what they're going to put in their books or how they're going to run their company is honest, right? So that you as the investor feel secure that all the money that ran through the company is actually going through the company, and you're going to get paid out the cut that you should get paid out through dividends or whatever else it is. Now, the investor is always looking to align the entrepreneurs and the owners of the business or the operators of the business in line with their needs. Meaning, if you guys get paid out, I get paid out, and everyone wins. And entrepreneurs want to fulfill that, because if they do, then they can get the next round of investment, or they can grow the company and do all the other things. Great. I think we're doing that, but we're doing that at a pace that's slow because we don't have enough revenue to really attract a ton of investment, because a farm takes time. Like, we planted 101 cherry trees last week or 2 weeks ago. And at the exact same time, planting 101 cherry trees that are this big is going to take 7 years before we get the first cherries, maybe, right? Or 6 years, or whatever amount of years. And realistically, the pace that cherries are going to pay us back is not quite worth investing in at this moment. Now, like I said in the last episode, there are other things that are worth investing in, like the value of the real estate, the value of ancillary businesses on the farm, and the people and the talent on the farm, right? So that creates the case for why people would want to become a member. But why would you want to get involved today? And then why should you trust me? Right? I'm managing the farm alongside others, but I'm clearly one of the key managers. Why should you trust me? And what if you don't trust me all of a sudden? What if you say, I want to invest, but I also want to weigh out quickly, but I also want to weigh in quickly? And the fastest way to do that in a way that is decentralized is to put all the records of who owns what in the blockchain in the form of potentially crypto, right? And a series of a systems exchange, potentially NFTs, which I'm going to get to, but also, more importantly, smart contracts. Contracts that essentially say that when this thing happens, this other thing happens. So let me explain how that scales into NFTs, and then I'll get into why I think NFTs can be linked to membership and why I think that's super important. And then I'll get into the crypto side of things and crowdfunding and those different directions. So again, our vision is to make a 150-person community. We can scale at the pace of me, the member, the core investor, and maybe a couple of other investors. We can scale at the pace of generosity in terms of donations or gifts and time, energy, resources, volunteer hours. And that's great, but that's not allowing us the vehicles of finance that traditional companies use to scale into a bigger vision. And if you've looked at any real estate development, for example, or even farm development that is scaling beyond just a small farm, they need funding and they need to make development plans, which cost a lot of money. Hire an urbanist, hire an architect, hire an engineer, hire this person, that person. But that cost relative to the value of the potential project, if we're going to build a bunch of farm homesteads and have a bunch of owners of homes that also have a backyard farm that they can farm themselves or that they can pay or participate in paying through the purchase of the land, but also through their activity or their financial contributions as members, to have that land managed, and they can share in the profits of their farm and the greater farm as a whole, right? Their land and the money made off their land or what's grown on their land, and their talent, potentially, if they're using that directly with the farm, and the money of the farm itself. Great. That sounds interesting to an investor who hears that. They're saying, yes, that's interesting, but what if I want to move? What if a life event happens and I just no longer see myself resonating with the values of this farm? Or what if I get a job offer to go out to move to Vancouver and now I want to leave the community? And I want to be able to kind of keep the integrity of the community and the memberships, but I also want to be able to sell my membership. Or I want to be able to move out of my membership and realize the value of my investments and the value of my time, energy, and money put into the farm.